She is Marian waiting at the gate for her parents. The moment she sees them, she rushes forward and welcomes them. Her mother apologizes for leaving her alone, but Marian reassures her saying Rose kept her company. Then her mother reveals a little baby boy, her brother Cheyenne. Mesmerized, she watches as he raises both hands to reach for her. Overwhelmed by the wholesome moment, she kisses him. Everyone cherishes the reunion. 3 years later, Maria beats Cheyenne in a race and taunts him, calling him a slowpoke. Cheyenne, admitting defeat, says she's just too fast for him. Suddenly, their father arrives and Maria excitedly rushes to greet him. Cheyenne watches in amazement at his sister's boundless energy. Their father smiles and praises Maria for such a warm welcome. She grins and replies, "I should shine brighter than the sun, and my red hair." Cheyenne then steps forward and greets his father politely. His father asks if he managed everything well in his absence. Cheyenne nods and adds that Maria was very supportive. Maria chuckles, that's what family is for. But deep down, Maria believes Cheyenne is dependable. He always helps their mother with work and behaves maturely. However, sometimes he gets lost in thought. One day, Maria catches him trying to perform a magical spell. Curious, she asks what he is doing. Cheyenne quickly avoids the question, brushing it off by saying he's just relieving stress. That night, the whole family gathers for dinner. Cheyenne suddenly asks his father if monsters exist. His father replies, yes, they do. He assures them they are safe within the property, but warns that monsters are dangerous for children. If you ever see one, run immediately and find shelter. Let the adults handle it. Cheyenne then asks if fairies and spirits exist. His father nods. They do, but I don't know much about them. I've heard some people even hunt them. Curious, Cheyenne asks, what about magic? The moment he says the word, everyone looks puzzled, as if they've never heard it before. He tries to explain what magic is, but it doesn't seem familiar to his father. His father thinks for a moment before replying, I may not know everything, but I am a well-educated man. I've never encountered the word magic before. Then he asks, where did you hear about monsters, fairies, and magic? Cheyenne falls silent, disappointment clear on his face. Seeing his reaction, Maria grows worried. Are you feeling sick? She asks. Cheyenne quickly shakes his head. I'm okay. After that night, he never mentions magic again. 3 more years have passed. Maria's training as a warrior continues while Cheyenne's time is spent reading books. A question is asked by Cheyenne about her intense training. A simple answer is given. She is good at it, and as the older sister, growing stronger is necessary to protect him from monster attacks. A warm feeling is stirred in Cheyenne, realizing her efforts are for his protection. Later that evening, sword practice is done by Maria near a lake. A tease is made by her friend Rose, asking if she ever gets tired of murdering air. Maria ignores her and asks Rose to join her. Rose refuses, saying she was busy with housework all day. She mentions they need more friends and adds that at least Maria has a brother. She asks why Cheyenne never comes out to play and what he does all the time. Maria says magic has never been mentioned by him since that day. She adds that he studies in his free time, probably about magic. Suddenly their attention is caught by something glowing. The next day, Maria takes Cheyenne for a walk. Cheyenne is cautious because their mother strictly told them not to go too far. Maria assures Cheyenne that it's fine and that there are no monsters out there. By evening, they sit near the lake. Cheyenne asks if their mother will be angry. Maria admits she might be a little upset, but says it will be worth it. Suddenly, they notice glowing orbs rising from the lake. Cheyenne is mesmerized. Maria explains that these orbs appear after the sun goes down. Cheyenne asks if Maria ever told their parents about the orbs. Maria says she did, but adults can't see them. In fact, many children can't see them either. As they watch, some orbs float upwards while others remain still. Cheyenne is amazed and wonders what they could be. Maria suggests it might be magic, just like Cheyenne once described, appearing out of thin air. Hearing this, Cheyenne becomes emotional and apologizes, touched that Maria remembers everything about him. Maria comforts him, saying she didn't do it for an apology, but to make him feel better. Cheyenne smiles and tells her that her plan worked perfectly. The next morning, they have breakfast and their parents are surprised by how energetic they are. Later, they head to the lake with buckets and a fishing rod. When Cheyenne starts to tire, Maria teases him, saying he needs to work out more. She also wonders why they came so early, since there's still a long time before sunset. Cheyenne explains that he wants to perform an experiment to find the source of the orbs. Maria asks what they'll do. Cheyenne explains that they'll fill 3 buckets with water, one with a lake rock, one with a lake plant, and one with a lake fish. Maria doesn't fully understand, but she's happy to help. After filling the first 2 buckets, they start fishing. Suddenly, Cheyenne laughs. Maria thinks it's because of her lack of fishing skill, but Cheyenne clarifies that he's happy because she's sitting beside him. Maria, with a smile, tells him that as his older sister, she'll always stand by him. Cheyenne thanks her, and Maria assures him it's no big deal. She's doing it because she also wants to witness the magic. Maria hopes the magic is real. Cheyenne assures her that if he ever finds magic, she'll be the first to know. Suddenly, Maria's fishing rod jerks, and she pulls up an Etten trout. Cheyenne asks if this is a common species. Maria replies that they're common and found everywhere. Rose arrives and sees the buckets. She asks if it's Maria's new training method and wonders if Cheyenne is her brother. Maria tells her they're just doing some experiments, and Cheyenne introduces himself. Rose introduces herself politely, but Maria teases her, saying she's just a commoner pretending to be fancy. Rose then asks what their plan is. Maria explains everything and asks if she's also come to the lake to observe the glowing orbs. Rose agrees, saying the orbs are mesmerizing. Curious, Cheyenne starts asking Rose a bunch of questions about the orbs, what they are, how they're produced, whether they come from the water or something else, how they behave, and what elements they might be. Their conversation continues until Maria notices how close they are and gets really angry. By evening, the glowing orbs start to appear, but there's no sign of them in the buckets. Cheyenne realizes the buckets aren't an accurate representation of the lake. He asks if there are other fish species in the lake. Maria says there are many, and Rose agrees. Determined to investigate, Cheyenne decides to check the lake himself. He takes off his clothes and enters the water. Worried, Maria follows quickly, taking off her outer clothes to keep them dry, which creates an awkward moment. She brushes it off, focusing on helping Cheyenne. Up close, the orbs look even more mesmerizing. Cheyenne touches one and feels warmth and a slight tickling sensation. Maria, worried, tells him not to touch them, but Cheyenne insists it's fine. Curious, Maria touches one too and feels its warmth. Cheyenne tries to look beneath the water, but it's too cloudy to see clearly. Still, he notices that the glowing orbs are coming from moving creatures. Maria asks how he figured that out. Cheyenne points to some underwater glows that are shifting and moving around. They return to the shore and put on their clothes. Cheyenne thanks Maria, but she playfully reminds him that there are no thanks in a family. Cheyenne explains that he just wanted to express his feelings, and Maria smiles, saying that's fine then. Rose then appears with a female Etten fish. Maria points out that unlike males, female Ettens are rare because they live in deeper waters. Rose agrees, adding that they only come to shallow water during spawning season, which is when people usually catch them. Suddenly, glowing orbs start appearing from the bucket containing both fish. Cheyenne shouts excitedly, saying he's figured it out. Curious, Rose asks about his discovery. Cheyenne explains that the orbs appear as part of the fish's courtship behavior. Maria asks what courtship behavior means. Rose explains that it's like the male proposing to the female to start a family. Maria laughs, saying it's a good thing she and Cheyenne are already family, so they don't need any courtship. Jokingly, she wonders if she'll start laying eggs soon, which makes Cheyenne extremely embarrassed. Flustered, Cheyenne insists that nothing like that will ever happen because brothers and sisters don't get married. Maria innocently asks why not, wondering if Cheyenne doesn't love her. Cheyenne quickly replies that he does, but Maria says she loves him too, so there shouldn't be a problem. Their conversation leaves Rose completely puzzled. The next day, Maria approaches Cheyenne with a sad face, saying that their mother scolded her for saying she wanted to marry him. Cheyenne feels sorry for her. Maria explains that she said it because she wants to stay with him forever. Cheyenne tells her they don't need to get married to stay together, but Maria insists that everyone has to get married someday. She fears that if they don't, they'll be forced to marry others and be separated. Cheyenne reassures her, saying he'll always be by her side and will never marry anyone. Maria asks if that would cause trouble for their father, especially about an heir. Cheyenne says he'll adopt one if needed, but promises to stay with her forever. Maria, surprised, says it's an extremely hard promise to keep. Cheyenne insists that even though he's just a child now, he means every word. Then he hugs her, causing tears to fall from her eyes. Suddenly, Cheyenne starts to glow and the light orbs appear around them. They realize it's magic similar to the Etten fish's courtship display. Maria asks if Cheyenne somehow absorbed the Etten fish's energy. Cheyenne thinks it's because his promise acted as a confession, triggering a courtship display. Shocked and overwhelmed, Maria doesn't know what to do and rushes out of the room. Meanwhile, Cheyenne realizes he has just witnessed real magic. He begins to wonder if magic doesn't exist in their world simply because no one has ever tried to understand its framework. Scene shifts to another world more like the real world. Here Cheyenne is an adult. It's midnight and he's anxiously watching the clock, waiting for the moment he turns 30. The second the clock strikes midnight, he jumps in excitement, remembering the legend that anyone who's still a virgin at 30 can become a wizard. Eager to test the legend, he tries to cast spells. Fireball, wind, blast, lightning, earth wall. But nothing happens. Frustrated, he pulls out an old diary hidden under his carpet and chants spells from it, but the result is the same. Nothing works. Feeling hopeless, he slumps to the ground, convinced that magic isn't real. Resigned to his normal life, he prepares to get up for work. But suddenly he feels a sharp pain in his heart, like a heart attack, and collapses, his hand resting on the diary. His eyes catch a quote scribbled inside, "No matter what, I will become a wizard." Memories flash before his eyes. His years of avoiding social interactions, his obsession with the legend, and his relentless research. Even though he knew magic was impossible in reality, he never stopped believing. As he reincarnates, his vision fades, he remembers his resolve. Even if magic isn't supposed to exist, he would never know for sure unless he tried. Cheyenne reflects on his past life and even his current one, realizing that his obsession with finding magic has always been his purpose. It was the reason he kept going. But 3 years ago, when his father told him that magic didn't exist in this world, his whole life turned upside down. The very reason for his existence vanished. Yet, with his recent discovery of the glowing orbs, a spark of hope reignited within him. Determined, he tries to cast a fireball spell, but nothing happens. Disappointed but not defeated, he wonders if he's just not ready yet, or if magic doesn't work the way he imagined. Still, he's certain that what he witnessed with the orbs was too extraordinary to be anything but magic. Suddenly, Maria rushes into Cheyenne's room. Seeing him looking embarrassed, she asks what's wrong. Cheyenne thinks to himself that it's fine now because they're still kids, but this could be troublesome when they grow up. Trying to change the topic, he asks he need her help. Maria says she came to remind him about snack time, but adds that she's always willing to help him. She then sits beside him. Cheyenne starts staring at her, which makes Maria feel uncomfortable. Out of nowhere, Cheyenne confesses, "I love you more than anything in this world." Maria is shocked because it's so sudden, but then Cheyenne starts glowing again. Realizing this, he gets excited and shouts, "My theory is correct. Professing emotions releases magical energy." However, Maria gets really angry. She thinks Cheyenne was just playing with her feelings for his experiment. Panicking, Cheyenne quickly explains that he meant every word and wasn't lying. His confession came straight from his heart. Maria calms down, understanding his sincerity, and forgives him. She then asks if he's finally figured out how the glowing works. Cheyenne explains that it's triggered by expressing strong emotions, but he's sure that confessing isn't the only way to release magical energy. Maria nervously asks if he plans to confess again, saying she needs to be mentally prepared. Cheyenne shakes his head, making her feel a bit disappointed. He then explains that he wants to test other emotions he once read about: fun, hope, excitement, happiness. Suddenly, he starts glowing again. Both of them get excited, realizing they're onto something big. Maria reminds him that he's the only glowing boy she's ever seen, making him feel special. Cheyenne thinks glowing alone isn't enough. He needs to understand the science behind it. He realizes that he has just confirmed the existence of magic. Comparing it to electric eels that sense electric fields and produce electricity form their special organ, he theorizes that humans in this world might have special organs that sense emotions and produce magical energy. He names this process magically charged state. Seeing him lost in thought and happier than she's ever seen him, Maria smiles and pats his head, saying, "I've never seen you this happy before." Cheyenne has been meditating on his bed. He understands 5 fundamentals of the magically charged state. First, to enter this state, he needs to build up strong emotions. Second, maintaining the magically charged state requires a lot of mental energy. If he stays in it for too long, he feels extremely weak for the rest of the day. Third, each time he gets fully drained, his mental energy reserve increases the next time. Fourth, some people can't see his glow, but those who can also feel its warmth when they come closer. Fifth, he still can't produce the glowing light orbs. He thinks his capacity isn't high enough and even starts to wonder if those fish might be more powerful than him. But he's certain that's not the case. He feels like a video game character stuck on the same level. He recalls his first magical encounter and tries to recreate it. He enters the magically charged state and focuses on channeling the energy to his hand, but it doesn't work. The problem is that 2 thoughts conflict in his mind: the emotions needed to enter the state and the logical focus needed to direct the energy to his hand. Then he gets an idea, a reverse process. He thinks if he can channel magical energy into his hand, it will make him happy. He tries it and suddenly his hand glows brighter just like the light orbs. Excited, he punches the wall and ends up hurting his wrist badly. He realizes how foolish that was, but having a glowing wrist is still a huge achievement for him. Moving magical energy in charged state and collecting it in a specific location he named Magic Gathering. And magic is collected is gathered magic. Cheyenne, Maria, and Rose gather to learn sword fighting from Cheyenne and Maria's father. Rose and Maria are excited, but Cheyenne looks uninterested and completely drained. He asks his father if he still needs to learn sword fighting since he has no plans to fight. His father reminds him that a sword isn't just for fighting, it's also for defending against monsters. Rose and Maria eagerly wait for the lesson to begin. Cheyenne, looking exhausted, quickly ends up on the ground. His father shows concern for him but praises Rose for his excellent sword skills. Rose gratefully thanks him. Next, it's Maria's turn. She faces off against her father. Spotting an opening, she dashes forward to strike first, displaying impressive sword skills, but ultimately gets defeated by her father. Feeling disappointed, she lowers her head. Her father reassures her, saying her strength and skills are good, but she needs to improve her movement and intelligence. He adds that in time she will become a great swordsman. Hearing this, Maria feels happy and promises to work harder and get stronger. Cheyenne resumes his magic practice. His next goal is to somehow release magical energy from his hand. But no matter what he tries, he still can't do it. Doubts start to creep in again. He begins to wonder if he's doing everything wrong and considers starting from scratch. Although his energy reserves have increased a lot, he still can't use them properly. Suddenly, his father knocks on his door. He comes in to tell Cheyenne that he's going on a trip to Istria and asks if Cheyenne wants to join him. Cheyenne happily agrees. Istria is a town in the Eton region, the area where they live. It's the closest mid-sized town to their home. Their whole family arrives there, but Maria seems to dislike the wagon ride. Cheyenne's father explains that they are going shopping and will stop by the smithy. He tells Maria and Cheyenne to stay together and not get lost. The only thing Cheyenne is interested in is magic, so he feels a bit disappointed because he can't explore the city on his own. He looks around hoping to find some clue about magic and dreams of coming back one day to explore the city freely. They start shopping and gathering supplies. While their parents are inside a store, Maria suddenly starts giggling. Cheyenne asks her what's so funny, but before she can answer, their parents come out announcing that they're done shopping. Now it's time to visit the smithy, which brings a big smile to Maria's face. They arrive at the smithy and Maria is amazed by all the equipment and weapons on display. The owner Grast greets Cheyenne's father and guesses that he's here for the special order. He assures him that the sword is ready and in excellent condition. Grast then introduces himself to Cheyenne and Maria as an old friend of their father. Cheyenne and Maria politely introduce themselves. Surprised by their good manners, Grast jokingly remarks that he can't believe they are his children. Their father quickly tells him to shut up. Grast goes to the back and brings out the sword he made for Maria. He designed it specifically to match her style. Maria is overjoyed when she sees the sword. She loves it so much that she's left speechless. On their way back in the wagon, Maria feels sorry for Cheyenne because she got a fancy sword but he didn't get anything. Cheyenne tells her that it's her birthday present, and since he's still small, he doesn't need a sword yet. He assures her there's nothing to fret about. Maria tells him he should be selfish once in a while. He replies that he's selfish all the time since he always asks for her help. Maria says that's not what she meant. Suddenly, Cheyenne's attention is caught by a store where a boy is carrying a small fairy in a cage. Curious, he asks his father about the place. His father dismisses it, saying Cheyenne doesn't need to know about it. But Cheyenne's curiosity grows as he reads the sign and wonders what fairy seller could mean. One rainy evening, a man is returning to his village when he suddenly encounters a young man running out of the woods. The young man begs for help, saying his entire party was taken by goblins. Meanwhile, Cheyenne is practicing his gathering magic with Maria's help. He can now hold gathered magic for up to 10 seconds. Maria cheers, saying it's a new record. Cheyenne thanks her for her help, but Maria notices he doesn't look satisfied. Cheyenne admits that even though he's improving, he wants to cast real magic like fireballs or thunderbolts. Maria notices that his magic feels warmer and brighter than before. Cheyenne explains it's because he's starting to control it better. He then dives into a complicated explanation about the mechanism behind it, but his words are so complex that Maria has no idea what he's talking about. Cheyenne's thoughts drift back to the fairy selling shop. He remembers the tiny human-shaped fairies they were trading, realizing that's why his father called them monsters. Maria snaps him back to reality by yelling his name. Just then they hear noises coming from downstairs. They go downstairs and see their father with a group of men preparing for a hunt. Cheyenne asks what the gathering is for, and his father explains that they are getting ready for a goblin hunt. At first Cheyenne feels excited because he thinks he could use the goblins to research his magic. But his father warns him that goblins are extremely dangerous creatures, so they must be cautious. Cheyenne notices the tense atmosphere and realizes that although goblins are usually low-tier enemies in stories, they might be more dangerous in this world. His father adds that since all the men are going out for the hunt, the rest of the villagers will take shelter in the mansion. Cheyenne asks if goblins are intelligent creatures. His father replies that they're not. Hearing this, Cheyenne comes up with a plan. He suggests blocking all the entrances with furniture and having the villagers hide upstairs. That way, even if the goblins reach the mansion, they'll be safe. His father agrees, noting that the outer walls are smooth, so the goblins won't be able to climb them. He also explains that they'll signal when they return so the entrance can be safely opened. Before leaving, his father tells Cheyenne to look after everyone. Maria also promises Cheyenne that she'll take care of him while their father is away. As planned, they block every entrance and everyone hides quietly upstairs. Suddenly, a goblin approaches the mansion and enters the outer wall. It tries to get inside but can't find any openings, so it starts scratching at the door. Hearing the noise, Maria asks if their father has returned. Cheyenne shakes his head, reminding her that they were supposed to receive a signal first. Rose wonders what it could be. Then a low growling sound echoes through the hallway, sending chills down their spines. Moments later, everything goes silent. They breathe a sigh of relief, but their peace is shattered by the sound of glass breaking. The goblin has found a way in and is now heading upstairs. Maria whispers that the growling must have been from the goblin, but Cheyenne signals her to stay silent. The goblin approaches the door of their room. They hold their breath as it pauses, then moves past their door. Just when they feel safe, a flash of lightning lights up the sky, followed by a loud thunderclap. The sudden noise makes a woman and a child scream in fear. The goblin hears the screams and smashes through the door. Cheyenne sees the creature for the first time. Its twisted, ugly face and terrifying presence make his blood run cold. He realizes how foolish he was for wanting to research such a monstrous creature. Their mother steps forward and begs for mercy, but the goblin only mocks her. Maria, filled with rage, draws her sword and charges forward. However, with just one strike, the goblin knocks her weapon away. She stares in shock, feeling powerless and hopeless, then collapses to the ground. The goblin raises its claws to strike her, but their mother leaps in to protect Maria, taking the blow herself. She staggers back, blood seeping from her wound. Watching everything unfold, Cheyenne realizes that if he does nothing, this monster will slaughter his entire family before his eyes. Without thinking, he leaps forward and grabs the goblin's arm. Rose shouts that it's useless, and Cheyenne knows she's right. But then he notices something. He's already in a magically charged state. Clutching the goblin's triceps with one hand, he focuses all his energy and channels his magic into his palm. Suddenly, his hand ignites with burning energy. The goblin shrieks in pain and throws him aside, falling to the ground as its arm burns. But Cheyenne quickly gets back up. This time, he places his hand directly on the goblin's head and pours all his magic into it. The flames intensify, scorching through its flesh. The goblin thrashes violently before collapsing lifeless. The room falls silent. Everyone stares at Cheyenne in shock. He just killed a goblin with his bare hands. But instead of relief, their expressions turn strange, as if they're afraid of him. Cheyenne sighs. "Now they're acting like I'm the monster," he mutters. Rose steps forward and says, "No, Cheyenne. You're the reason we get to see another day." Hearing this, Cheyenne feels a small sense of relief. Maria starts screaming as she sees her mother unconscious and bleeding nonstop. Rose and Cheyenne try to calm her down. Rose tells Cheyenne that she'll take care of Maria and he should try to treat their mother. Noticing his mother turning pale, Cheyenne knows he must act fast. He asks the other women to help move her to the bed and then asks if anyone has medical knowledge, but no one does. Remembering medical treatments from his previous world, he asks who is good at sewing. One lady agrees to help. Cheyenne quickly assigns tasks. One person to get the sewing kit from his mother's bedroom, another to fetch the cleanest liquor and clean cloths, and the rest to move the goblin's body. The women get to work immediately. As they hurry to help, a boy thanks Cheyenne for saving them from the goblin. With everything ready, it's time to start the treatment. Cheyenne tells the lady helping him that no formalities are needed. She can just call him Cheyenne. He carefully cuts his mother's dress to expose the wound. It's deep but not too severe. He worries that the goblin's claws might be venomous but decides to stay positive. He asks the lady to begin, but she hesitates, unsure of what to do. Cheyenne tells her to stitch the wound, but she's shocked. "How could I do that?" she asks, horrified. Cheyenne realizes that stitching wounds isn't a common medical practice in this world. He quickly explains that wounds close naturally, but stitching speeds up the process and prevents blood loss. The lady shakes her head, refusing. "I can't hurt my lady. I can't wound her more." Desperate, Cheyenne pleads. It sounds strange, but she have to trust him. If they don't do this, she'll die. Moved by his urgency, the lady agrees. Following Cheyenne's instructions, she carefully stitches the wound and wraps the area with clean cloths. After everything is done, Lady Emma looks better. Cheyenne thanks the woman for helping save his mother. Maria asks Cheyenne if their mother is safe. He tells her that she hasn't fully recovered yet, but assures her that she's out of danger. Overwhelmed with relief, Maria breaks into tears, grabbing his shoulder. Cheyenne hugs her gently, saying, "Everything will be fine." Just then, their father returns from the hunt and calls for them. He explains that they found the goblin lair in the nearby woods and defeated 2 of them. However, they discovered signs of more goblins and rushed back to the village. Some men were injured, but thankfully there were no casualties. With the threat gone, peace returns to the village once more. The next morning, a doctor comes to check on Cheyenne's mother. He says the wounds are healing well thanks to the excellent treatment. There must be a skilled medicine expert in this house, he remarks. He assures everyone that she will recover soon. Lady Emma is now conscious. Maria approaches her, apologizing. "I should have stayed back." Her mother smiles gently and says, "What happened wasn't your fault. You should be proud because you risked your life to protect those you love." Later, their father takes Cheyenne and Maria into a room for questioning. He has already heard from the villagers about what happened and their stories match. He then asks Cheyenne how he knew about stitching wounds, since he never taught him that. Cheyenne thinks to himself, "I'm a 30-year-old Japanese man," but he can't say that, so he replies, "I don't know. It just came to me." His father then asks how he managed to defeat a goblin alone and what caused the scorch marks on its body. He suspects Cheyenne used magic. Cheyenne offers to explain everything if his father is willing to believe him. His father hesitates but says he trusts his children. Maria reveals that Cheyenne has been researching magic and made great progress. Their father is shocked and disappointed. He scolds Cheyenne, saying he always thought of him as mature, but experimenting with magic is reckless. He orders Cheyenne to abandon his research, warning that if people find out, their family could suffer. Cheyenne feels his heart break, but Maria defends him, pointing out that his magic saved her and their mother. Their father argues that if magic can kill a goblin, it can do much more and is therefore dangerous. Cheyenne remembers all his struggles and refuses to give up on magic. He says it's the very purpose of his life and even offers to leave the family if his research causes trouble. Realizing Cheyenne's passion, his father sighs and asks, "Are you willing to face the consequences even if society rejects you?" Cheyenne firmly agrees. His father then allows him to continue his research, but under one condition. Cheyenne must report every new discovery so he can monitor it and prevent any danger. Cheyenne feels emotional hearing this. His father tells him to hold his head high, saying he trusts him to work hard and make him proud. Cheyenne and Maria feel relieved and happy to have his support.